Miranda, the old link works, right?
Link that was on the agenda.
The invite, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that separate one I sent was also works. It takes it from there. All right. I feel like we can move on, and Ron can join us when he can get on. Miranda, do you know if we need to do another roll call?
Yeah, yes, you should, just to make sure everyone's here, which we know we've lost Ron, but you don't have Hope yet. Did you want me to?
Yeah. Did you message her already?
I did, and I sent her an email.
Okay, I see this.
Did you text her?
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna do that.
I texted her and I sent her an email.
Okay, yeah, she said she's back on. Great. And Miranda, I forgot your answer. I was distracted about whether we do another roll call back here.
Yeah, I would, just so for the record, you can show who is still on the call, especially since you've lost Ron.
Okay, great. Hope, are you okay to do a roll call again for resuming the regular meeting?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Jonathan Baumhover.
Present.
Barb Hart.
Here.
Karina Lucier. Claudia Schaffler. Did Claudia come back? Okay, I hear you in the distance.
I'm here.
Andrew?
Sorry.
That's okay. Andrew Dwart.
Sure.
Ron Mitchell.
Hope Ron has not made it back yet. He had technological issues.
Thanks for letting me know. Rhea Ortner.
Here.
Brent Tregaskis.
Nowhere I'd rather be.
Steve Caro.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. So let's see, if somebody would like to make a motion based on our executive session, that would be great.
I move to accept the recommendation of the hiring committee in relation to hiring our new executive director as discussed in the executive session.
I second.
You have to be more specific, or is that,
Yes.
that fine?
Yeah, because your executive session is not public information.
Right.
So what do I have to include? And I'll be happy to.
Move to hire executive director at pay rate of $26 per hour and continue as precedence has dictated to allow for any funds not covered in the operating budget over the allowed hours to come out of TIF fund should projects dictate.
And could we also add that her start date will be tomorrow?
Should you add her name as well? Just a thought.
That sounds good.
Kate Massengill as the executive director.
Yes.
Brent, maybe you on your part.
And you can say everything that Hope is saying, and that's great, Hope, to call her out specifically. And you can say the hourly rate as well. And you could just say, and she will be, her hours will be allocated to be in alignment with the budget, period. Because I don't know if you need to go into all those other details.
Yeah, I agree with you, Karen. We don't need to, I don't think. I
Just
think
as long
that's the common practice.
Yeah, as long as it allows with the budget, and you could add, and policies related to TIF funds.
Motion to
Because-
hire Kate Massengale at $26 an hour,
Effective
effective.
Thursday, May 13th.
Thank you, Karen.
Sure.
2021.
Takes a village.
Second.
Hope, could you read for the vote?
Sure. Andrew Dwart, Ron Mitchell. Not there yet. Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Brent Chagaskis,
Yes.
Steve Caro,
Yes.
Claudia Schaffler,
Yes.
Karina Lucier, Barb Hart,
Yes.
and Jonathan Baumhover.
Yes.
Is Karina not here?
I don't see her on the
Okay,
call.
I keep calling her. Okay, I'm going to take her name out. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, now we have, next up is public comment for non-agenda items. If anybody would like to say something, just introduce yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm showing up just to be here. I don't have anything to say at the time, though.
And what is your name?
Kraus. Danielle Kraus.
Okay. Thank you, Danielle, for joining us. Is there any
Hi, this
other
is
public comment?
this is
Oh,
Rick Hendrickson. I've got a comment.
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and Steve, you and I talked about this briefly a little bit ago. Just wanted to let everybody know. The short version of the story is I'm going to be cutting my hours back pretty dramatically at the fire department starting next month. I've been 30 hours a week for the last few years doing the inspection and fire marshal program, and I will be cutting back to probably 1 day a week, perhaps 10 hours a week. We're still working on details. I'll still be doing a lot of the plan reviews and construction inspections, but we're looking to pick up somebody probably part-time to do the more routine inspections. Still up in the air as far as details, like I said, but that's the direction we're heading.
Thanks, Rick, for that.
May I
update.
ask Rick a question, please?
Yes.
So I know that the fire department has asked in the past the DDA for funding. And last year, the DDA provided funding specifically for the program you're in on fire inspections because it related with downtown businesses so well. The DDA also asked if the fire department could provide kind of like an end of the year report as to where that funding went. And then if the fire department is interested in more funds, if they could then request it. And I think that's kind of a yearly thing. And I didn't know if anybody knew that or not with all different changes in the fire department. So I thought it'd be a good time to bring it up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think somewhere it got lost in the shuffle as far as us providing an end of year report and a request this year with all of the other things going on. But we can certainly get that to you. I'll talk to Chief Durr about that tomorrow, and we'll work on getting that to you.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment?
No, I'd just like to publicly thank Rick for his help in making the Eldora as well as Netherland a safer place to do business.
Well, thank
I
you.
want to
Appreciate that.
that with, multiple frowny face emojis that you're going to have to step back a bit, Rick. But if that's what's best, and a part-timer can do the routine stuff and you can still be the eye in the sky, that's what it is. But thank you so much for everything you've done so far and continue to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's sentiment from a lot of people in town. Really appreciate the hard work you've done. and we'll continue to do with fewer hours. Thank you. Do we have any other public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, then I'd like to move on to the consent agenda. And do any of the board members have any discussion or comments on the consent agenda items?
I move to approve the consent agenda as stated.
I second that. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And all those opposed say nay. Okay, consent agenda is approved unanimously. But now we're moving on to discussion items. First up is Chris Pelletier from Public Works on the Safer Main Streets project. And Chris, I'm happy to have you take this over.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so thanks for having me tonight. I'm back again for a different project, Safer Main Streets Initiative project that the DDA is partnering with Public Works on. And it's again, Safer Main Streets Initiative. The project is to improve a sidewalk on Peak Highway over there by the library, the existing soil sidewalk. Some pedestrian crossings at the library and potentially where the liquor store is now, or by Kathmandu Plaza rather, and then the main crosswalk over by the visitor center. Those are prioritized, and then there's a little bit of money for traffic calming or whatever that looks like. I'm not clear on that yet. And I wanted to bring this to you tonight to get input. Town was awarded the grant back in December of 2020. And throughout this time between then and now, we've been just in the contractual phase with CDOT to begin the intergovernmental agreement. And we finalized that document a couple weeks ago. Next BOT meeting on their agenda, they'll have the contract with the town's engineer to begin design. And so I wanted to come to the board tonight to sort of kick off and get some feedback on what the board might see as priorities for this project. Essentially, the beginning of Netherlands planning process. As with the Tiff project, I had created an OPR and owner's project requirements based on input from all the boards, Sustainability Advisory Board and ProSab and DDA and a couple other ones, and then create a document that sort of outlined the town's values and priorities that they wanted to incorporate into the project. In your packet, I put a map. It's just a conceptual drawing, just essentially to show you the location. There's no design yet, but I can share that with you. So, hold up, just for are you seeing that?
Yes, Chris, I could see that.
You can see that? Okay. Again, you know, it's nothing to write home about. It really is just it's showing you the location, right? So the yellow bar up there is where the sidewalk currently is. It's again a soil sidewalk. The original intent of that sidewalk when NetPeds was originally designed was to have a paver design that provided some permeability for stormwater quality And actually beneath this, the base beneath that sidewalk is gravel, and there's an underground drainage system under that sidewalk. And then the larger red square, there's the crosswalk at the library. So we'd like to sort of maybe inch the side, the street down a little bit for traffic calming, reduce the speed there, and improve that crosswalk with a signalized crosswalk. And at the liquor store, I mean, at the Kathmandu Plaza, there's a, we're proposing putting a crosswalk there. Seems to be a popular place to cross. But additionally, it's a direct connection to the parking at the Presbyterian Church. So it seems like it could be utilized there, and it also is a connection to Tiff. So we're proposing putting a crosswalk there, but just a regular crosswalk. And then the very larger square on the bottom right-hand side of that screen obviously is by the visitor center, and we'd like to improve that crosswalk. And initially, the idea of the project was to provide a crosswalk other than paint. As many of you may have noticed, CDOT went out there and they painted all the crosswalks, which is great. But then it snowed for the last 2 weeks, and then the plows peeled them all up again. And CDOT won't be back for a couple more years, and that's how the crosswalks are going to be. And I've expressed that to them before. It's unfortunate. It's May. It snowed, and it's just been one of those springs. But that's what happens. The plow comes by, scrapes it up, and it's gone. So I would like to do a stamped concrete design, something really to delineate that sidewalk or crosswalk permanently, and then do a signalized crosswalk. So in a nutshell, that is it. Let me unshare the screen because I think nothing really else. And then I am in communication with, as far as the pavers are concerned. Did I unshare the screen?
Yes.
As far as the pavers are concerned, I am in communication with a company that creates this really cool paver. I have a piece of it here called Hydro Pavers. It's a ceramic, so it's not concrete. It has a different carbon footprint, I guess. Really cool product, relatively inexpensive. And that's it. So I'm hoping to get, some feedback from you guys. I wasn't planning on doing like a really comprehensive OPR like I did. I really think this could be maybe not necessarily a one-pager, but I think I could reduce it down because the project is pretty simple. So with that said, I'll open up to you guys for any comments or any priorities you'd like me to incorporate into this project, whether it's about the design or public or just, I don't know. So that's it.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
go
I'll
ahead, Brent.
start out. Yeah, this Brent, both of these situations or both those projects or those locations are in the CDOT right away, right? They have nothing to do with town, and it's a CDOT issue, or
That's correct. I'm kind of at the mercy of what CDOT will allow me to do. I don't know if they'll allow me to do a concrete crosswalk.
yes. And then is there any grant money available, or are you just trying to get this kind of checking the pulse of us, or is there a grant project that you've tied this to?
Yeah, the Safer Main Streets grant
Yes.
is a grant that town was awarded in the amount of $280,000, and then the DDA is matching 20%, $80,000, for a total of $350,000. And in
But-
your, go ahead.
So this is a continuation of what we talked about a month ago on the First Street project. Is that true?
No, last month that is a different project, a grant that I'm actually submitting tomorrow. And just as an aside, Steve, I'd like to have that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'd like to have it like tonight or tomorrow morning because I am submitting that tomorrow. But
Okay.
that aside, no, that's a different project called Revitalizing Main Streets, and
Okay.
that is just an application process at this point.
Okay, so that's why I was confused. I apologize, but
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is confusing because I'm always coming to you guys with a different project and asking for money, and I get it. But this is exciting because we got money and we're going to fix some stuff. So I'm looking for some input on whatever you think.
What's the current idea and vision behind improved sidewalks? Are we just talking filling in what's there with concrete? Are we talking raising them up 4 inches? What's the vision for improving that sidewalk? Because we all know that the permeability of these sidewalks and the functionality of them doesn't really work, especially like right now for ADA compliance. But the original vision was that they could be plowed along with, the plows. But then we have to consider this is CDOT's right away. It's not like they're going to scoot over 8 feet, 4 feet to plow our sidewalks. So do we want to what's the vision? Are we going to raise them and have an actual raised 4-inch concrete sidewalk? Or are we simply going to make the existing sidewalk non-permeable?
No, the vision is to realize the original intent, which was keep them as they are now. Like I said, what exists there now are what are called ribbon curbs that are flush with grade, and they're concrete, basically edges. And instead of pavers, which was originally visioned for NEDPEDs, because of cost, they weren't able to do that, and so they filled them with crusher fines, which really aren't ADA compliant. And so with these funds, I'm proposing to bring the pavers back. And then, as I showed you, these pavers are actually unique, and they are permeable and are supposedly easier to maintain, more permeable than concrete. So I'm proposing putting pavers in the existing ribbon curbs as forms, and making the current surface a hard surface, but still permeable.
Okay. And are we talking Public Works doing this install? Or are we talking contracting this out? Just curious in terms of
Contracting this out.
Contracting this out to a company that's experienced in using this specific paver.
Experienced in laying paving, but these pavers come from Canada. But experienced in laying pavers.
Okay. So the ideal would be basically then pull back enough of the crusher fines to use the existing ribbers and then flush out with these new pavers, working with the permeability of these new pavers to use the existing sidewalk and continue to maintain snow removal as it has been, but hoping that these new pavers will actually allow for ADA compliance sidewalks and, functional sidewalks, I guess, is what we're looking at here.
Yes.
Okay. I like the idea. I'm a little concerned about a paver like this, and just because you're experienced in laying pavers, every new product has a new installation specification, and it takes a little bit to get that. So I guess I'd be a little bit more interested in the specifics and the specs of these pavers. I do really appreciate your attempt to keep on with the intent of NEDPEDs with the permeability and the non-concrete. I think that speaks a lot to your care to follow master plans, comprehensive plans, and really follow what has been set for you. So that's awesome. I guess I'm just a little bit more curious on the specs of these pavers when we look at the past of, I guess the permeability of 2nd Street and what that was supposed to produce versus what everybody up here as locals kind of knew the conditions would realistically produce. We were supposed to get 10 years out of that, and we got like 2. And now we have a non-permeable street that we paid a lot of money to be permeable. And I'm just being honest, it's nobody's fault. It's just we have harsh conditions up here. We got to be realistic when we look at the specs of spending money to build a functional sidewalk. So I think you're on the right path, Chris, and I think this is awesome. I'd just be a little bit more interested in the specifics of those pavers.
Or maybe like, if we could look at it from what's the operational costs of the pavers year over year compared to something else, and do some math that way. Because they might be great. I didn't, I need to study those, but definitely interested in seeing how they're applied and how they're maintained. But thank you, Chris.
Sure. I have quite a bit of information on it. I talked to the owner of the company for quite a bit. I have some specs for you. I have ADA specifications. The procedure for laying these pavers, which are essentially the same as laying any other paver, just making sure that the base is correct and the materials are correct. But I'll share all that with you. In addition to that, the maintenance of them, it's a little bit different than a porous concrete or a porous asphalt, where you're really not supposed to wash them as they can become impacted. Because these are actually a ceramic, they don't look it. I mean, if you look at it, it just looks like a brick. But I guess they're a ceramic and they bake them. They don't clog. I have examples of dozens of projects that I'll share with you guys. So yeah, I'd be happy to share with you a bunch of information.
I mean, I'm really intrigued. I guess this is probably more a question for Rhea, honestly, is how many weeds do we pick up in the crusher finds currently in our sidewalks? None, it seems, but I haven't really paid attention in a few years, to be honest.
I mean, I wouldn't be worried about noxious weeds. I would be concerned about grit removal over a bunch of pavers, ADA accessibility. I don't, and then
I guess
just in continuity with throughout the town. I see there's future use of pavers,
that's, I guess,
going to make the town look
curious. It seems like these would need to be pressure washed on a yearly basis, if not more.
just
Well,
yeah.
let's let Chris get back to people with specs offline.
I just say one more thing I'd just like to bring up is that being on the public art subcommittee has kind of opened my head to ideas of other ways to install public art. And I know Mandy Vink, who is the primary author on our public art master plan, brought up some examples of crosswalks inlaid with like types of art. And so I just wonder if there's an opportunity to do some kind of art project inlaid with the pavers or with stamped concrete or do something. And I just think that maybe we should just keep our minds open about that.
And to the point of the pavers,
Anyway.
I'm not married to these pavers at all. I actually would prefer to put concrete down. It's so easy and cheap, and you just hire a truck and they come pour it in the ground. But the carbon footprint is terrible. And I imagine there's going to be quite a bit of pushback from other boards. But I'm just putting it out there. I actually prefer concrete. Just but
So Chris, realistically, on that level, do we have the capacity between? I mean, you probably might not have the time for this, but within JVA, do we have the capacity to do a cost analysis on concrete versus these pavers when it comes down to a maintenance level for the public works? Because I struggle with this because I'm all about a zero carbon footprint and this idea of permeability. But when we look at these sidewalks and how they've worked out and the maintenance level that would need to make them, the argument is always they haven't been maintained as they need to be. Well, okay, do we really have two guys in public works to be out there every other day with a jumping jack pounding this down, refilling the crusher fines? Because the system could work if you had enough input into it. But do we have the capacity to do a cost analysis of these these building materials that have a less carbon footprint but require a higher level of maintenance that unfortunately as a small municipality in a rural town we are not able to maintain? Because I think the big picture needs to somewhat start to come into Nederland of we could build functional sidewalks that work well, meet ADA compliance, meet this, and don't require a burden of maintenance on town staff and public works to constantly maintain. They require the DDA hiring somebody to sweep off the sidewalks once or twice a week, which is far different than pressure washing an entire section of CDOT right away that they're going to be dropping product on from salt to who knows what all winter long while blasting gravel on because we drop gravel all winter long up here, even through town. So every year, these pavers are going to be taking gravel, they're going to be taking product from CDOT, and they're going to be taking salts. Okay, they're chromatic, but okay, they're still going to absorb salts then. It's still going to have an effect. And we just, concrete is tested. It's sure, okay, it has a carbon footprint, but when it comes to the maintenance level of running a pressure washer, having public works out there with a town truck, and all of that factor, do we have the ability to run a cost analysis on that on JVA's level?
Yeah, I'll include that in the as a request for just part of the project. That's why I'm here tonight. So yep.
I'd like to see it, and I'd like to see it on future town projects when it comes to infrastructure, when we're being held back using concrete because of a supposed carbon footprint. When the maintenance of any of these other systems and structures is yet to be proven to actually overcome the carbon footprint of concrete, because they all require far more maintenance, and most of that maintenance either needs to be hand labor or it needs to be empowered by hand jumpers or jacks or some type of machinery, which is usually powered by fossil fuels. So we really need to start to look at the big picture in Nederland, because I'm getting kind of frustrated with buying carbon credits and shooting for 100% renewability when it doesn't actually work in the town of Nederland in a functional capacity. And we're kind of just, I don't know, virtue signaling. That's how I feel, because I'm all about sustainability, but sustainability is building something that the town of Nederland's public works and maintain, not something that gets us a bunch of eco stars and then 3 years later is a huge cost burden that doesn't work.
Jonathan,
thank you, Jonathan. I think we all get that point really well now.
and I just want to add that I don't think it needs to be either or. I think it can be both and I'm fully in support of concrete. And to Rhea's point, could there be options for, recycled crushed glass pavers made from the recycling plant in Nederland and certain crosswalks? Yeah, that'd be cool. And they're going to take a lot more work in the end, but I don't think it's either or. I think it can be both and concrete should be what's put down.
I
primarily.
totally agree. I want to start to see a big picture cost analysis, not a surface level of carbon credits and less carbon footprint. When I want to see 10, 20 years down the line maintenance cost.
Great. I think that's a good point. Is anybody else have any input on this for Chris on any of the points that he put out in the AIM? I have just a few, I guess, inputs for you, Chris. I think on the sidewalk, real short, I'm all in favor of pavers and that permeability, as long as the durability is good and the cost isn't so high. And like Jonathan said, you know, the cost both in carbon footprint and in money over time. So I'm look forward to seeing some more information on that. You asked for input on the traffic calming methods, and
Yes.
I wasn't real sure on that, but and especially being CDOT roads, I don't know if we could do this, but my experience as a driver around the country has been if there are raised sidewalks with even a slight bump, it really slows people down because after they hit it the first time, they slow down every other time. So if that's allowable, and I know with all the plowing that might be impossible, but that would just be input there. And I was wondering also what your question was about signage suggestions, like what you were thinking or looking for on that topic.
Maybe wayfinding, I guess I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe.
cool. I wasn't sure if you might have been asking about you know, flashing lights or something like that, because I know there's been a number of discussions in town about how bad flashing lights are for our town.
Well, that is being proposed is
As long as they're rainbow lasers.
signalized crosswalk at the library and a signalized crosswalk at the visitor center.
Okay. Great.
So,
Does
yeah,
anyone else? Oh, sorry, what's that, Chris?
that's it.
Okay. Is there any other input on this? And
Public comment.
yes, do we have any public comment on this topic?
I like Rhea's idea of introducing artwork for crosswalks. If we can't do raised speed bumps, we could potentially put sculptures nearby, like animals or people. Down in Boulder, there are sculptures of people, eye-catching things like that that get people to react to slow down. They do fly through here on those specific crosswalk spots. Open up to creative suggestions. But yeah, sculptures are an idea of signage and the wayfinding of even something that says, you know, caution or something like that, aside from flashing lights and rainbow lasers. But creative ideas, that's all.
Thank you, Danielle. Do you have any other public comment? Chris, do you have anything more to add before we move on?
No, I'll bring back to you guys a more conceptualized drawing of what we're considering, and then a cost analysis with JVA, and I'll also receive input from other boards, ProSab and SAB, and I'll be back again to talk about it some more. And maybe I could have placeholder for traffic calming, which may be a sculpture or could be a sign or whatever, but I'll just kind of have that spot set aside specifically for that purpose in the drawing. and then we'll be able to better, you'll be able to see visually identify what the lights are going to look like. And then I'll probably hopefully have more feedback next time from CDOT on what they'll actually allow for a crosswalk. So I am limited about what they're going to let me do.
Sure.
More input then.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chris, for keeping this discussion going on these various projects you have in the works.
Okay, and you'll send me a letter, Steve?
I will. Yeah, I wrote it and just put it over at my main desk. Sorry for that delay. Great. Next up, we have the.
And Steve, one more very curious question sparked by actually public comment. Hey,
yes.
Chris, have you ever seen those tiles that are solar paneled tiles that are actually can be installed as roadways or garage pavers?
Yeah, I have, and I was thinking about incorporating some of those in the TIP project. I received information on them. Yeah, I have.
Okay, I would be very curious to see, that may be incorporated by the library, especially with how much the moose are around that area, because it could provide some real fun entertainment for real-time driving and Ned, caution, moose. So.
You mean in the crosswalk itself?
Oh yeah, to do the crosswalk out of that instead of pavers, because you could then have solar panels directly attached to that. It could be part of the NED, sustainability thing. It would just be an interesting idea to look into, because those pavers can they're not only solar paneled or powered, but they can say whatever on the crosswalk. They can provide a caution signal. They could provide signs and directions. So if we had Dead Guy Days or NedFest and we were trying to direct parking, you could use those panels to direct parking instead of as a crosswalk, and then in real time shift it to a crosswalk when somebody hits the crosswalk button. Those panels are real-time, smart, intelligent LED solar paneled powered, so they can reflect whatever message that you want across that area, and they're pixels. They're like 2x2 with 1 inch by 1 inch pixelation. So
if they're clean.
If they're clean, correct. So you, to my old point of functionality and this, it might not work, but really cool idea if we could find a way to make it work. Could tie in with the public art.
I love it. I think it's great.
Like I said, I'll see what CDOT will allow. But to your point, to your earlier point, whatever CDOT allows Netherland to do in the crosswalk, it will ultimately become Netherlands' problem to maintain. We'll have an agreement with CDOT that makes those crosswalks Netherlands forever. I imagine they're only gonna, they're not gonna be all that flexible, but I'll find out what they'll do.
Cool. Yeah, that's a neat idea. All right, moving on to the next item. It's a aim by Rhea to hire public art assistant, and I make a motion to move this to the action item section of our meeting. If somebody has a second, we could.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Can we still discuss this now? I do have someone here waiting to talk, a couple people.
Okay, Karen, is that allowed to do like an action item, then go back to the discussion and then back to action items?
Well, I wouldn't say it's the most efficient, I don't think it's normally the mode of operandi, but I think if you want to make a case to do it this time, that's fine.
Okay, and I make a motion to move this to an action item and address it now.
All right, thanks everyone. I'm Rhea.
Well, don't you need a second and to vote on that?
Yes, we're gonna second and vote it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Rhea, here's a suggestion. Let's go through this as discussion, and after discussion, let's make the motion to move on an action, because after discussion, it'll be quite clear whether or not we're in a position as a board we want to move into action.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, that's fine.
That's normally how it's handled. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay,
So this
so
is up for
Rhea,
this.
take it away.
Okay, so as you know, I'm on the public art subcommittee that you have. Danielle Kraus is with us. I'm not sure if there's other folks here. I also have Carissa here. Carissa, excuse me if I butcher your last name, it's Maniago. And just a little background. Our proposed budget for the DDA included a $10,000 kind of placeholder to do some kind of public art this summer. The Public Art Committee met and we decided that the first project we want to do is a mural. And none of us felt like we really had the expertise to effectively shepherd through a mural RFP, hiring everything we need to do. So I asked Andy Vink, who was the primary author of the Public Art Master Plan, if she's willing to help us through it. She didn't have time, but she recommended Carissa, who's with us here tonight, who helped her with the Art Master Plan. And Carissa has a MFA in Sculpture and Post-Studio Practice from the University of Colorado in Boulder. And she's currently the Public Art Project Manager and Designer in the city of Boulder. And she already provides project management and program support for projects in Boulder, including all those great murals we've been seeing, if anyone's been driving through Boulder. So I have her resume attached to this agenda, as well as her proposal. Her proposal is $1,200. And then to be honest, I really just threw together a budget of how the rest of the money could be used, thinking that the Board of Trustees would want to see an entire budget and not it just being piecemealed. But since I gave that budget, I've been talking to Carissa, and we've been able to kind of nail down some of these costs, and are thinking maybe $7,000 for the mural project, and all the parts is more. It's probably more like it, and I can share those exact details. But I kind of would like to open it up for discussion and let Carissa talk and see what everyone thinks of. Because I'm assuming you've read everything I've posted already.
Yeah, so Ray, I think maybe if we could, I have to assume people have read it and seen all the parts. And perhaps we can just go through and call people and they could ask you or Carissa questions as we go through. Brent Tregaskis, would you be okay to start off? And I think you're muted, Brent.
I am,
Brent.
sorry. I defer
Okay.
to Rhea because she's done more homework on this and more informed than I. So I don't think I need to waste time.
Okay.
All right, Carissa said she's having trouble with her mic. Maybe she can call me and she can answer questions through my phone. If there's questions for her, we can do it through chat.
Okay.
Anyways,
all right.
let's
move forward with let's see,
Oh,
Ron
wait.
Mitchell.
I think somebody just unmuted me, or maybe I did it. But here, okay, perfect. I'm here if anyone has questions, you guys.
Okay.
Everyone. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. Ron Mitchell, do you have any questions for Carissa or Rhea?
No, I don't. I'm all for the public art and I leave it in their hands.
Okay, thank you. And how about Andrew Dewar?
I don't. I just kind of, one thought was, which is probably addressed in the proposal that I didn't read. Full disclosure is like where and would there be ways to incorporate mobile structures that are dual use? You know, whether, I don't know, just a random crazy idea. But like if we had, you know, a semi that functioned as a shower and bathroom that had public art on it, or public art other places, just another idea to throw out at you. But no, I think it's great, and I would love to see more art and would love to see more murals.
And just so you guys know, no one's asked this yet, but where is the first mural going to be? And aren't you all just dying to know?
Yes, actually, yeah, where is it? Where is
Our
it?
committee decided the east-facing wall of the business connection. So the business connection was the old post office, that brick building. Chelsea runs the business, and the building's owned by a woman named Dorothy Emmerling. And it's very visible from the traffic circle. We thought that would be a good project. We both have verbal agreements, both from Chelsea, the business owner, and the building owner, to do the mural there. It would be installed on plywood or something similar, not painted directly on the brick, so it could be moved down the line if needed. For reference, on the Harvest House, Stacy's shop, Shay did that mural, and that was that was on like some kind of wooden plywood. I think Larry Higgins installed it. Shay painted it. That's there are some unknowns in the cost, especially with the increasing prices of materials. So my budget in here is a little bit loose, I have to admit, but I'm definitely looking on feedback because we do want the Board of Trustees to approve it. So.
Thank you. Claudia, did you have any questions for Rhea or Carissa?
I don't have any questions. I think it's great. And I think we need to make note of the fact that since we're all volunteers, this is really a hard project to do without professional help. So I think ongoing, we need to kind of look at this maybe more often as we move forward. I really appreciate what Ray has done, and I think it looks great. I'm very, very excited about it.
Thanks, Claudia. Barbara Hart, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm really all for the public art. The main comment I have is that we just hired someone to be our executive director that has a ton of project experience, project management experience, and I'm wondering if we should be discussing this further with the new director, and if this was something that she could take on rather than hiring someone outside to do what essentially may be part of her job down the road. So I'm all for public art. I'm just throwing that out there because it seems like we have something that might just fit right into the scope of things that she could manage for us.
I kind of agree, Barb, but I think there's such a learning curve that we have to be realistic with what we expect Kate to be able to do. And I think that I'm just going to say that Kate's time as the executive director would probably be much better spent shepherding all these projects than being intimately involved in individual levels of each one. That's all.
And I just have to say, time is of the essence. If we want to try to get a mural RFP out, select an artist and get it painted before it snows again. And Kate just got hired. I mean, her start date is tomorrow. So there's really no way for me to plan that, including her. And I do think she's going to have a lot on her plate just to catch up and know what's going on. I think it's worth it to hire a professional to at least do this first project. A couple of the people in the Public Art Committee did want to shadow her to kind of understand how she does things. So in the future, maybe it's something we can take on ourselves. But I think it's very worth it to hire someone who's used to doing this to do this. I also just want to say is like the Public Art Committee has momentum now. Like I don't want to see it languish. We've put a lot of work into getting the Public Art Master Plan, and we need to get something done. And that was part of also my impetus for taking Mandy's recommendation on hiring Carissa.
Thanks, Ray. I wanted to chime in on that point because I think that was something that caught my attention, Rhea, in your aim was that, and I want to hear Carissa's input on this, but I'm wondering, how reasonable or it is to expect that, Carissa, I guess how reasonable it is to expect that other interested parties on the Public Art Committee could shadow you on this first project and that you would be able to impart enough information to them that perhaps on our second and third murals, we'd be able to handle it on our own or more on our own.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure what your thoughts are, Carissa, on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of have a collaborative approach to working, so I'm absolutely yeah, happy to kind of explain the process and have people involved in all this stuff. Definitely.
Okay, great. And even if it were to be that we would try to take it on ourselves down the road, that is okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was my, I guess, what I thought would be a really great way to leverage the information that you have in the knowledge base and be able to kind of impart it to some of our crew that could then, depending on the projects in the future, do it ourselves. So that was my main question, I guess. Jonathan Baumhover, do you have any questions or input?
You know, I really don't actually have any questions. I'm actually really stoked to hear that the site has already been kind of acquisitioned, and I think the business connection is the prime spot, especially for the DDA to be sponsoring public art. I guess my only other input would be maybe it's not a business, so to speak, but I happen to notice that the Netherlands Food Pantry continues to be putting up their makeshift heaters for their greenhouse kind of repurposing of the west wing of the community center. And currently that is all just blank plywood. And when you're driving into town, kind of coming down there by Navajo, if you're looking at the community center, it's one of the first things you see. And so I think as a first site, the business connection is awesome. My only input would be maybe connect with Chris Current of the Netherlands Food Pantry and check out maybe putting some public art on the back of the plywood of their current kind of heater systems for their community greenhouse. Because I couldn't think of a better place for public art to intersect with community than the Netherlands Food Pantry and community there. And I could totally see a mural of kind of farm to table esque community input from building the beds to the caretaking of those veggies to them being packed and given to our community as some type of community artwork. So I would suggest potentially looking at some of the sites that are right coming into town. But I totally agree with the idea of sprucing up the business connection. And as a first site, I think that's awesome. I would love to see some public art right when you drive into town on all three of the main entrances to town. So that's my only input. And I think this is a great hire. And looking at the proposal, especially considering a site is already kind of locked in about a month ahead of schedule, I think this is acceptable to move to action.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. I think we've heard from everybody now on the board, and I would make a motion to move this to an action item so we could vote on it.
A second.
Okay. Great. Let's Hope, could you call a vote for, and actually, Rhea, well, before we did that, sorry, we should ask for any public comment on this before we're voting.
I will comment, please. This is Danielle Kraus.
Yes, Danielle, thank you.
I am very excited about Carissa being able to teach us what we want to be learning and further improve our ability to take this on ourselves within our community. I like the idea of more areas that we can be approaching this with artwork, and the business connection is a great initiation piece that will show people that we're here, that we're organized, that we want to do this, and then get more public feedback on where and what we want to all see. And thank you for your time again, as always, with helping us put it together. That's all.
Thank you, Danielle. Is there any other comment?
I have a quick comment. I just want to shout out to the Public Art Committee. And just, kudos for all the hard work that they've done along with Mandy to keep it moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's great to see the momentum on that.
Yeah. And I would
Leah,
I would just add, Jonathan, that's high dollar plywood, and we would want the mural to reflect the rising price of commodities and an infographic that just spiraled into Ned. All right.
Right. Rhea, could you perhaps make a motion for the vote? As far as what we're voting on.
I make a motion for the DDA to approve the proposed budget for the implementation of public art in the DDA district as specified in the AIM, which includes the hiring of Carissa Samaniego and some other preliminary costs
Second.
for a total of $10,000.
Second.
Oh, great. Jonathan Baumhover? I will come back. Steve Carroll?
Yes.
Barb Hart?
Yes.
Brent Chergaskis?
Yes.
Rhea Orthner?
Yes.
Claudia Schaffler?
Yes.
Andrew DeWart?
Yes.
Ron Mitchell?
Yes.
And Jonathan Baumhover? Okay.
All right, that passed, and Jonathan didn't vote one way or the other on that. He wasn't seemed to be on at the moment.
It sounds like he's having technical difficulties with his computer.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Well, thank you, everyone. And we're really excited to have Carissa on board to really, in her professional expertise, to really get this through. And, we'll be advertising the RFP through all the local media channels, including print. So we'll be talking to Barb, of course, about the Mountaineer and other locations too, where we can get the word out when the time is right. So we'll be able to update you in about a month on how it's going. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you, Rhea, and thanks, Carissa. We look forward to your help.
Thanks for having me, you all.
Yeah, for sure. All right, now, excuse me?
I was just going to ask Carissa to please say her last name.
Oh, okay.
Samaniego.
Samaniego. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Great, thanks, Rhea. Next up, we have a discussion item. I've allotted about a 5-minute time slot for this one, and it's for Ron Mitchell, who wanted to have a discussion about having a study done by Joe Minicozzi for economic analysis. And Ron, there was no aim with this, so I'd like you to introduce it as best you can, and we can discuss it.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve.
Sure.
Joe Minicozzi is a unique form of presenting economic data from the viewpoint of how it will benefit towns and communities. He did a study for Idaho Springs, and they implemented many of his recommendations. And I think that he was in Netherlands probably 6 or 7 years ago, and did a sort of a summary analysis, and was sponsored by Downtown Colorado Inc. And of course, our board has changed completely since that time. And not completely, I think Chris Larson was on it. So I would like to propose that at a future meeting, we look at the budget and that we approach him to see what he would charge us to do one of his studies, because I think it would really be beneficial for the town to have some idea from an independent third party what redevelopment could do for the town. And that's why I've put it in here. It's a very simple concept, and he's probably the leading consultant that does this kind of thing for small communities. Any questions? I will be happy to send information to each person individually between now and the next board meeting, so you'll have a much better idea of the kind of thing that he does.
Yeah, Ron, I have a question. So,
sure,
is this economic analysis all done through the paradigm of redevelopment or development?
No, he takes the current, well, that's half of it. He takes the current situation and he does a economic base study from the tax base and the sales tax base, and then he compares it to a pro forma projection. And he does it visually in three-dimensional graphs.
Okay, and is he accounting for like the demographics presently and the projected demographics of the Front Range corridor?
Yes, he does. He takes in a tremendous amount of surrounding activity as part of the.
Does he have some? Do you have anything that he's done in the past for other towns that he'd be willing to share as an example?
That's just what I said a minute ago. Is that I would make a packet for the board, so that we might be able to vote on it at the next meeting, and you'd all have a chance to look at it thoroughly, and I could get that to you probably in a week or so.
Okay, all right, that's all. Thanks, Ron.
Certainly.
Ron, my quick question would be, do you have any idea what he charged Netherland 7 years ago or whatever it would have been?
Yes, his fee then was $60,000. Take inflation and add it to what it would be now, and I guess it would probably be 80 to 100.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's a very, very in-depth type of thing.
Can we pay him on how much money he makes the town?
That's a really interesting question, and I'll ask him.
Serious question. You said he did this 7 years ago for the town?
Yeah, I mean, if
he would probably say it might have to be payable to his estate, given the speed that things happen in Netherlands.
Right, but like, here's your base little fee, and then if your great plan pans out, then more power to you, buddy.
The question I would go, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Brent.
The question I would have is, do we have what he gave us 7 years ago? Because
it's probably not much different.
I don't know much has changed. I mean, I'm being a little bit cynical, but I don't think, looks about the same as it did when I arrived 6 years ago. So do we have that
when I arrived 60 years ago.
Yeah. Do we have that report, or Karen, could we get that?
I can ask him. I don't know that the town has it.
Because DC, wasn't it a collaboration with DCI and the DDA, Ron?
No, the Boulder County Board of Realtors and DCI paid it. He was coming through anyway.
Yeah.
So they gave him.
I don't know if the town ever got that, but we can certainly look and see.
Well, and I'm sure he's got it. And I'll call Catherine Carell at DCI and see if she's got it. I doubt it, but Joe might have it. So
I would love to see what he did for us before I spent that kind of money, because that sounds a little steeper than what I was thinking.
I'm estimating on the high side. I don't know.
I agree with Brent.
I think I've seen something in DDA, very, very old files. I want to say maybe 2016, 2017, right around when the plan was being written. I think that's right around when he visited. So I'll send you anything that I can find for tomorrow.
That'd be great. He's become very popular, Brent, and he's raised his prices accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the 5 minutes.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. Appreciate that. Let's see. Now, Ron, the next item is also a discussion item. you had wanted to put this about the moving the TIF funds. If you could explain that one for us.
Again, we have more money sitting in the bank than we're spending and probably won't spend for another year. So we could have two choices. One would be to buy a 1-year CD or open a money market account. I think either one is just fine. It's more money than we're getting having sitting there where it is.
Ron, I just want to remind everyone that the mayor has requested that no more money be invested until you guys come back to the board with your implementation policy and clear direction on how you guys plan to have a process in place for investing your money. Steve, wasn't that your understanding with the last conversation and with the mayor showing up at the last meeting that he specifically said, don't invest any more money, and this investment that was made without the Board of Trustees being involved? So he's asked specifically to hold off on any more investing of any money until you come back to the Board of Trustees with your policies and procedures.
Sure, that's reasonable. And I think now is just a discussion item about the idea about how the board feels about it. And then, but thanks, Karen.
If I
Okay,
could
so
ask,
that's what happened with the conversation that then ended up that Ron purchased the CD without having approval from the Board of Trustees or the approval of your investment plan. So I just don't want that to happen again. Because
yes, but Karen, I just want to correct that statement, because that other thing was getting a CD and a line of credit. That all happened before we had an investment policy. So it was before the BOT was even aware that there was an investment policy that they wanted us to do. So I just want to clarify that point.
They feel that that never should have happened without coming to them first with an investment policy, or at least a request to move the money into a different bank and set up a CD. And some of the trustees have their nose out of a joint over that, because
of course they do.
yeah. Okay, I'm just saying, let's not continue to make that mistake.
Hey, Karen. Hey, Karen, where was this discussed in a public meeting on the BOT?
That happened. The mayor actually called me and talked to me about this, and then he showed up at the last DDA meeting, I believe, and he actually stated this. And he said that the CD was invested in prior to bringing the investment policy to the Board of Trustees, and no one ever talked to the Board of Trustees about moving money out of the town's bank into a different bank and purchasing it. I think you weren't.
I guess I would fundamentally actually kind of challenge that, because the first time this was brought to the BOT, it was acknowledged that the DDA would be taking out a line of credit, and that was separate from where they might be investing funds that were earmarked for projects. Because I mean, this whole concept is pretty basic. It's the DDA has funds that are earmarked, that are already set aside, that are, for better or worse, spent. Okay, they're already spent. They're already done. So in your budget, as your personal budget, you'd earmark them off. But they're not actually coming out of a bank until 2021, 2022, 2023 because of Chris Pelletier's timelines with regards to the
Jonathan,
project.
can I just ask you, just to save time, that you talk directly to the mayor? And I think you weren't on that meeting.
No, and I wasn't, and that's my
that.
point, is you were telling another public board that the mayor and the BOT is against something this DDA has done. We have not on a public level actually come to that consensus. So I really don't care what the mayor has said to you in a private meeting that I have not been able to attend.
He said it publicly in a DDA meeting.
Well, that's fine.
And I think you weren't there.
I think there's two different.
That's what I said.
One is
I understand that, and I also understand very clearly what this DDA is trying to do, and I feel like it's being micromanaged in the intent of virtue signaling by a BOT that cares more to look politically correct than it does to actually be infrastructurally sound. So I'm going to save my piece there, and I will get in touch with the mayor.
All right, I'm going to keep this
There's
at 10
nothing wrong
seconds.
with this.
The money is like in escrow when it's in a CD. It's totally liquid and it's been allocated. And as we move forward with Rita 6 and our QuickBooks program and are able to give monthly reports or quarterly reports to the BOT, that's one thing. And the Dana Edwards investment thing is a whole nother thing. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, apparently what you're asking for is something more. There's something you're asking for something more than what the Dana Edwards policy produced for us. And I think that was when the mayor said he wanted to make sure that where we were investing, and I did check into this, didn't have certain types of stocks that weren't approved for the town. And this is something that Karen, I'd like to work with you on this idea, because I asked the bank and they said, we are not at liberty to divulge any of our investments to any of our account holders. Their financial statements are public record and can be got, but as far as investors in the bank, they don't give you that information. So there's no way I can know whether or not the bank that we put the money in for the CD invests in oil stocks or not.
Sure. I was just reminding everybody of what the mayor said in your meeting at the meeting he attended, which I believe was your last meeting. That's all I was doing, was reminding you of what he asked you all to do, which was just to hold off on investing any more money until you bring your policies and procedures to the board. That's all I'm going to say. You guys were
Karen,
there.
I
You heard
believe
it.
there's a vast difference between investing money and pulling a line of credit. And from my understanding, what we have done as a DDA is pull a line of credit. That is not investing money. That is pulling a line of credit, which is well within our prerogative, our legal rights to do as a DDA. I don't understand that purchasing the CD and getting that line of credit is making an investment. It's actually getting a line of credit to allow us liquidity to actively move our cash flow and
I
fund the project.
understand that, and you can ask Ron. It was my suggestion to get a line of credit. So please,
But I don't
think you guys are
understand why the mayor.
misunderstanding me, and I'm happy to just shut up, and I will not say another word.
No, I want to clarify this, Karen. Did we invest money as the DDA in anything but a line of credit?
No.
The
CDs.
CD.
The CD backs the line of credit. The two
Yeah,
are tied together.
and it came at a cost of $2,500 or something like that. So I'm just saying, I'm just was reminding everybody that the mayor showed up at the last meeting. He spoke directly about this, and he specifically asked not to invest any more money. And I see something saying move TIF funds to a money market account. That is what I'm talking to, Jonathan. And again, I really hope you can spend a few minutes talking to the mayor so you will understand what he said at this meeting and where he's coming from. And I am.
Well, I would certainly like to have that statement ready for the next meeting to take care of whatever the problem is here so that we can move forward with it.
Are you coming, Ron, back to the board as they asked you to do with your policies and procedures for the investment policy? That's what they're waiting for.
Well, I think that should be clearly already established. I don't know what more I can say.
No, they specifically asked you to come back and bring the DDA's policies and procedures for investing, for implementing the investment policy. So they're still waiting on
apologies. I asked to put that
here.
off till the next meeting. I thought maybe the new ED could do it. But I would wonder, moving it into a money market account, that's basically a savings account with a check associated with it. It's a higher interest rate. So I'm not sure if that's purchasing it, but this might be a good Paul Bendetti question.
I guess I will. Hey, I'll just jump in. This is Brent. I am a little frustrated in that I thought our investment policy that took us 4 months to get done in the last year was enough for that. And I didn't understand the mayor's request in having more detail than that because I thought we dotted our I's and had an outside consultant guide us to that. And I don't understand what else he was wanting us to do before
Yeah.
putting money
Well,
in a
what happened is
that
Barb
seems a
Barb
stretch
Hart
to me.
Barb Hart actually questioned some of what Ron was saying for how the money was going to move and who was going to be the ones making the decision. And Barb, if you're on, do you want to talk about that and why the Board of Trustees ended up asking the DDA to come back with policies and procedures?
Yes, I specifically asked that there be a policy in place stating one person cannot make the decisions, first of all. Second of all, the BOT has to approve any funds greater than a certain amount taken out of our account and put into another account. I don't care if it's for a CD. I don't care if it's transferring it to a savings. It has to be approved by the DDA and then by the BOT if it was more than a certain amount. And so
Yes.
that is what Karen is
Isn't
echoing.
that what
Can I
Dana
finish, please?
Edwards?
Can I
Yeah,
finish, please?
go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. What Karen is echoing is what the mayor came back and spoke to us about last time, that there needs to be a policy and procedure in place saying if we're going to move money, it has to be approved by the DDA and then the BOT, and one person cannot be in charge of that. For instance, Karen brought up Ron cannot be in charge of that, but our treasurer and the ED could be in charge of that without naming names of whoever it is in the future. And that has to be in a policy stating who can make those decisions. And it's not in what Dana gave us. It's not outlined clearly in what she gave us. So the BOT was just asking us to come back with that information, and we have not done that yet. So
Well, I made the comment that any move of funds would be presented to the board and it would be a board vote as to where it goes. That's why it's an information item. So I think we're at a point where I'll just simply say, and I'll put it in writing for the next meeting, that if there's to be a move made, it will be presented to the board and the board will vote on it. And that means that no one person has any control over it, a move of funds. And that's what this proposal is about, to set up a money market account and put funds in it. So
and
we're
Barb,
just
I would
going
agree.
around in circles and I'm really frustrated at it, but I'm going to give it another shot.
Well, let me just say, Barb, I agree with you, and I believe that what you're asking for is the operational framework, regardless of whose name is in the role, to present to the BOT to say, hey, if there ever were an investment to be made, this is the operational framework of how it would go down. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct, that it involves the DDA and then the BOT before any money can be moved. That's it.
Yeah, okay,
And
that's
then,
easy.
Barb, is
Easy
there a
enough.
statute that you're referring to where you got this
No,
information?
Ron, there's a resolution as the BOT member who made the motion when Barb brought this up during a BOT public comment that required that any move of funding from the DDA be approved by the treasurer and the ED and then be presented to the DDA board to be approved. So what I'm hearing the issue is apparently a CD was purchased to back the line of credit that was not presented to the DDA before it was approved, and that was
It absolutely was presented to the DDA.
And I
take issue
agree with
that.
you, and Ron, I agree with you because I happen to remember that the line of credit was separate from the investment policy. So I agree with you there, and that's where I take issue with this whole discussion. Is we agreed to the line of credit separate from the investment policy. We agreed that the CD to back the line of credit was at no risk to the DDA. So what we're fundamentally discussing right here is that the BOT has a piss in their pants because they don't have duplicity of oversight. And I'm sorry, I am a BOT member, but I'm frankly over duplicity of oversight when there is fundamentally nothing wrong with this investment. There is fundamentally no risk to the town. It is fundamentally not the BOT's money, and the oversight has already happened 3 times over in discussions. It just seems that people are unable to understand how this money is being flowed. And that is not a problem that I really want to take issue with, because it is complicated. But the fact is this money is spent. We are simply gaining enough interest back to pay for our printing and to pay for basic office fees. We're not even making a big investment off of this. And the fact that people want to nitpick because it's Ron Mitchell, man, he has put like at least 300 hours into this in the last four months to figure out how to get the DDA to pay for their printing costs. So I'll sit here and I'll say, I'll go to the mayor and tell him to F off, because I'm really frustrated right now, and we just need to let this go and move on. I will work with the BOT for functionality, because functionality in the future is any more movement of money is approved by the current treasurer and current ED, which as of tomorrow will be a new ED. And that will then be communicated to town staff, Miranda and Karen, and be put in an aim to go to the BOT to be approved. And then funds will be moved. That is what the investment policy that the DDA approved and the BOT amended agreed upon. So if we can all just agree right now that we can solve this problem by agreeing that this purchase already happened, there was slight miscommunication, and we know that from here on, there will be a BOT and a DDA vote for every movement of money. Because this has been 3 months on, and honestly, I feel like Ron's getting picked on when he has done an amazing amount of work, and all you guys are getting is enough investment return to pay for your printing. It's intelligent business, and he's put a lot of effort in, and I feel like the guy's getting picked on simply because he owns a lot of commercial property, and I'm tired
All
of
right,
it.
Jonathan, let me stop you there. And just as the chair, I want to kind of wrap up this discussion here. I think that Karen was doing a good job to try to, let us know that we shouldn't be taking an action at this meeting, and that we, need to follow the protocol set up by us and the BOT. But I think that there was an error in the timing of things, because the CD that was mentioned with the line of credit to it was approved by us a long time before we even had, it was several meetings before we even had started on the investment policy. And it was when the
Agreed.
investment
So
policy went, excuse me, I want to finish. And it was when the investment policy went to the BOT that the BOT decided that they wanted to, they approved that. I think almost, no, Eric Coombs Esmail didn't vote for it, but otherwise everyone voted for it. But they said that they wanted us to the DDA to come up with a policy, procedural policy to use that policy, the investment policy. And that's what we haven't done. So I do want to say that, I thank Karen for bringing it to our attention. I don't think it was a worry at this meeting, because this was just a discussion item on it, and it wasn't an action item. But I think it was good of her to remind us of that. The BOT had tasked us with doing that procedural policy, which we haven't done yet. But I just want to clarify that the CD that we bought and the line of credit that's attached to it was done at least several months before we even started on the investment policy. So that's just a little bit of a time frame to it. But I do think that we need to go back, and at our next meeting we'll create a procedural policy and bring that back to the BOT. And then, Jonathan, like you were saying, in the future, I also think that it wasn't about moving money, but it was about investing money. But that's that's something that we can clarify before we do either of those. So I'd love to move on from this, but I just wanted to clarify some of those points, because I do think it was good of her to remind us of that, but there was some errors in the timing.
No, I think you're right, Steve, and thank you, Karen. And it sounds like what we need is a substantive 15-page, document on how to sharpen a pencil.
Well, no, it actually was who could
Can
do
I
it,
just,
which people could do it and how it would happen, that we have to set up. And the
I,
other thing that Mayor Larson asked us is that we have no investments in oil and gas specifically. And then he, kind of in a side note, he said, or, anything to do with weaponry or military.
so
So we
Chris,
can, that's pretty simple. We can say we're not going to directly invest in any company, and we're not going to invest in any companies anyway because our investment policy limits us to
Right,
municipal stocks, municipal securities, which are
right,
those not equity investments. They're interest-bearing investments that are from governmental entities.
right.
Yeah, it takes a
So
lot of
why
oil
would
to
we
make an
need an
electric vehicle.
investment policy when that our policy already says we're not going to invest in any company, much less one that
Right,
has military ties or gas and electric ties. I mean
right.
gas and oil ties. So
I agree with you, and we'll get that policy and bring it back to the BOT as we were asked to do. So I do agree with you, Ron. It's sort of an impossibility with our investment policy, and the BOT didn't seem to pick up on that part of it. But I think they have reasonable requests, and we'll work on those at the next meeting and bring it back to them.
so
But
Steve, I really appreciate your attempt to move this discussion on, but with all due respect, I reasonably have to disagree that there was not an investment policy procedure already established with the executive director, the treasurer, determining the investments, bringing their pros and cons before the DDA board to be approved, and then presenting that approval and vote from the DDA to the BOT to then be approved. I feel like we established that with the BOT and the DDA. I feel like we
okay, I didn't
established that
remember
the
that.
night that we, as the BOT, accepted it. And so
I
I guess,
didn't remember that. Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of amendments the BOT made to that. And so I guess that's where I'm having a struggle, is that we're going to spend more DDA time meeting to you guys did a fantastic job. You brought a very functional investment policy to the town. There was questions about who is going to be running it, when they're going to be running it, who's going to be the treasurer of the DDA at any given point. So there was a desire for duplicity in approval of those funds on the BOT level. The discussion that happened on the BOT level was that for the investment policy to be accepted by the BOT, that any investment would be looked at by the treasurer of the DDA, the ED of the DDA, then written in an aim to the DDA in a public meeting to be voted on publicly by the DDA, to then be recommended to the BOT, to be publicly voted on by the BOT, to then actually allocate and move funding. So
That
it
was my
wouldn't,
recollection.
that is how this all happened. So the discussion tonight seems to be after the BOT has approved this, something has happened, funds have been moved, and there was not a DDA vote, there was not a BOT vote. I go, okay, that's valid for us to have this discussion. Fundamentally, was there anything that the DDA hadn't discussed, that the BOT hadn't discussed, that created risk? No. So what did we have? What we had a first test fire of a system newly created. And what did we get? Well, we got some bumps in the road and we figured out where our miscommunication was.
It'd be
So
like
now,
a backwardization of protocol, Jonathan, is what happened. And I think, yeah, I'll just move it along. I'll leave it. I'll shut up.
well, thank you for the technical term. Now we move forward with what is established on public record in votes between the DDA board and the BOT, and no more money gets moved until it is approved by the BOT. I think then we satisfy the mayor's request. This discussion brings an awareness to this board that there was a mishap in what they approved, and maybe it brings an awareness to this board that we need to be more on the same page about what's being presented to the BOT and what's being approved, and this board needs to be aware of how the BOT might have amended any resolution this board brings before the BOT before it makes actions. So that's all I have to say. And then I guess I find myself a little bit frustrated because I found this investment policy to be good work, good collaboration. I found the BOT's comments on it to be very insightful. They recommended things that were in line with the comprehensive plan and the master plan. And there's nothing wrong with the documentation nor the voting going on here. There seems to be something wrong with the communication flow between town staff and DDA, I guess executives and staff. So I'll just leave it to that.
No, this was all super useful, Jonathan, and kind of coming into the new group, I think it would be important. And I'll send a link to everyone off the record of like Tuckerman's stages of group dynamics and the storming phase, which is what we're about to go through, or norming and then storming. But long story short, let's move on.
Great. I'm happy to move on, and we'll double check that we have everything in place that we need to before we bring this back next month. All right, now we are moving on to action items. And the only action item for tonight is the Artist Cooperative, which Claudia Schaffler was going to present for us.
Yes, thanks. So I've been in discussion, as have many people, with an artist in town who's been working on putting together an artist cooperative. It would not be a nonprofit. It would be a for-profit. And she's been working a long time on this. So what I was hoping to do was to see if there was any interest on the DDA to help support this in some fashion, to be determined. I'm not suggesting anything now. But I wondered if we would put together a work group, a committee to work on this specifically. I think it should be separate from public art, I think, but that doesn't mean it has to be. And it would be specific to having a co-op where artists could come and work, where people could sell their art. It would be, I imagine, it would be professionally staffed. The advantages are huge to a town. It helps support local artists, but it also is a big draw once you get it up and going, and it can really contribute. Even like people come up with a carousel, they might come up because we have this wonderful artist co-op to shop. So there's lots of good documented economic benefits on that. So all I'm asking is that would we set up a work group / committee to work on assisting this specifically for the DDA business district?
Thank you, Claudia.
Just to jump in real quick here in regards to artist cooperatives, I think if you have enough like-minded artists, it can work out. If you have artists with different creative spirits, it can go sideways. So I don't know how you would have a, necessarily a kind of overlord or board of the co-op that could make decisions impartially. And maybe that's written in this document that I'm about to read, but that would be the only thing is, artists are artists and they've got their idiosyncrasies, and that's cool. And that's why they're artists. And co-op of artists and the environment and the space and the way it feels is very important to artists.
I agree, and I'm not asking that we do this project. I'm asking, would we consider putting together a group that would look at supporting it and maybe assist whoever does want to put together this project? Does that help, Andrew? Because I agree with you totally.
Yeah, I mean, I'll help hold hands and calculate rent and stuff, but I don't know what else to do.
Claudia, yeah, Andrew, I just wanted to ask Claudia a question. If she knows from Naomi, what her vision is for the artist collective or cooperative.
She has a pretty clear vision. and she's reached out. I can't go into specifics. She has reached out to local artists, and there's been a lot of enthusiasm. I just envision us as maybe being able to assist them in some manner, helping them with a location, maybe helping them find a location. If our ED had a small amount of time, or if we had some board members that were interested in supporting this, ideally, if once she had something to present back to the board, it would be really nice to be able to give them some financial support if that's what the board decided they wanted to do. Right now, it's all in the planning stages, and I just was wondering if anybody on the board was willing to jump on board and work with her and see what kind of help she does need.
I would be very interested in doing that, and I'll tell you why. Some 10 years ago, before Ubon Thai Restaurant moved into that building at 155 Highway 119, I had an artist co-op for 5 years, and there were myriad problems. We have a tremendous number of really good artists in the area, but I'm all for somebody running the gallery. And I went down and I studied a lot at Santa Fe, and I talked to the gallery owners. And the people who run the galleries and actually sell the artwork are a whole different breed than the artists. And you have to have somebody with a powerful personality running the show, or in my case, it flopped miserably. Thank you. But I'm interested in helping, Claudia, if I can, if somebody wants to talk to me about it.
I agree. I think you're right. Artists selling their own work is a challenge at best. So what I was envisioning is that they would have paid staff that would actually, that's what she's communicated to me, paid staff that would actually run this. But again, this is Naomi's vision with a whole bunch of other people working with her. I'm literally just exploring to see if this is something we're interested in helping with, or do we want to wait till she's further along? I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea either. I just wanted to explore it.
Yeah, Claudia, I think my hesitancy is out of ignorance of what's being asked and what's needed. And I hear that, you too maybe need some more information from Naomi, but I'm wondering what sort of, you mentioned maybe the DDA somehow helping her to find space, or potentially, some financial input from the DDA to help make it work. But beyond those two, I don't really understand what's being asked of us here.
No, do we want to have a committee that would at least look into this? Maybe it isn't something we want to pursue, but at least have somebody dedicated to looking into it.
I think our hands are so full right now, and
Yeah.
we're trying to get a new ED into place, that she should come back to us in a month or two when we have any kind of idea what we're going to be looking at overall as the DDA, because it doesn't sound like it's formed enough for us to have any kind of action on this item, which is what it was brought for. So I'd like to see it come back later this summer.
And if anything,
The only action was, do we even want to look into it? And do we want to form a committee to look into it? That's the only action, not to commit to anything.
I would just say no. And the only other thing I would say is that if there's a cooperative of artists that's willing to put energy into Netherland, that maybe they could help the wayfinding committee or the beautification or the other committees on their time. And then, we could go from there.
Yeah, we're doing that too. Believe me, Andrew. Okay, that's fine. I just said that I would bring it up and see if there was any interest. But I agree. This is, it's not a bad idea to just wait. So thanks for your consideration.
Thanks, Claudia. And
Thank you, Claudia. And not to, I didn't want to torpedo anything. It's a good idea.
No. I understand. And at least we can think about it, and maybe 6 months down the road, something more apparent will come up.
Okay. Well, thank you. Do we have any public input on this before we move on?
I'll publicly comment on that. This is Danielle Kraus. I do live in Eldora. I do have a business in Netherland, and I am an artist. I think it would be incredibly helpful to have more than one artistic venue going on. I know there are the wayfinding, there's the beautification, those are all really good things. To have a physical address where artists can be supported and create in a safe environment, in an environment that is encouraging, much like school, class, peers, supporting one another, that is not a bar, would be really helpful. I strongly hope that this would be further considered and that we could bring it to you guys again. I know Naomi's been working really hard on it and she has a lot to offer, and it would be really nice to see it be supported. That's all.
Thank you, Danielle. So, all right. Moving on to the next items are informational items. And I have a chair report for tonight. And I apologize, I didn't get this in time to post it to the meeting, but I'll happy to share it afterward. I wanted to mention about the chair transition and that I'm stepping down in July. And I've heard from 2 board members so far who are potentially interested in becoming the next chairperson. And that's Barbara Hart and Andrew Dewar. And I wanted to find out if anybody else, has any interest, or really what I'm saying is I recommend that anyone else who does have interest prepare something for our next meeting, which will be the June meeting, so that you could spend a little bit of time informing the board about, why you'd like to be the chair and maybe what you feel are your strengths to support your being the chair. And I'd love to do that in June so that when it comes to July, we've already heard from people and had a chance to follow up with the potential new chairperson before we would have a vote in July. So please feel free to reach out to me offline if you want any more information about, what it's been like for me over the past couple of years and what, amount of time and things like that. I know I presented at the last meeting, but feel free to reach out with any questions on that. And then I'd love to bring that information to the next meeting to prepare us for the July vote. Also wanted to say I'd like to be and very willing to be instrumental or involved in the transition time with the chair, especially because we're also having a brand new ED executive director at the same time. And I've seen from the past couple of years being the chair, how closely we need to work together between the chair and the executive director. So I think it's especially important to have 2 good transitions happening about the same time. So I'm very committed to that transition time. And then the second thing I wanted to was actually asked to give a little bit of feedback about the executive director transition timeline, or more just overview really than a timeline. But I want to say thanks very much to the hiring committee for a successful search and hiring process. And we're really excited to welcome Kate Mazengale as our new ED. Her start date is set for tomorrow if all of the procedures that we need to follow can happen tomorrow. And this is just a brief overview of the anticipated transition from how I've learned, how I've come to it with a lot of different parties involved. I think that first of all, we'll hire Kate tomorrow is the plan. And then we'd like to schedule one-on-one meetings with each of the board members with Kate to be able to, talk to her one-on-one over the next couple of weeks. And I think that once she's officially hired, we'll send out a notice to everybody so that they could reach out to Kate and schedule those meetings. Just wanted to mention no more than 2 board members at a time could meet with her because of the sunshine laws, or we would have to publicly notice it. So if more than one person wanted to meet, that's fine. But if it's more than two, we would need to notice it. Ron Mitchell, the treasurer, and I had a few discussions in a Zoom meeting with the town staff, which was Rita and Karen and Miranda, about determining the best financial procedures and processes going forward. And we came, part of the process was that we're going to purchase a license for the QuickBooks so that Kate, the new ED, would be able to use QuickBooks. And Rita was also in that meeting, the town, is that the town treasurer or accountant? Sorry, I've forgotten.
Yeah, she's the town treasurer.
Town treasurer.
Yeah, and she's been attending. She's on tonight too. She listens into these meetings too.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we thought it would be really a great idea to have the DDA use the QuickBooks company file that Tanner D'Alessandro, our accountant, has created for us. And we talked about a lot of ways that we can interface most efficiently with town on the finances. So that would be one part of the training. And Ron and I will be sitting in on those meetings as well, so we can update the board and also become educated in the whole process at the same time. Andrew Dewart and I and Ron Mitchell and perhaps other people on the board and Rita all know QuickBooks very well. I use it in 4 businesses for about 30 years. So we feel really comfortable that if Kate doesn't have the necessary education, we could teach her on that. And so that will be, part of the training for Kate. And let's see. Sorry, I'm just going to turn on my light. It's very dark. Been sitting too still. Then also, Kate and I will be meeting with the town staff various times to learn the best practices for the meeting agenda formats and submitting the packets to town so that we, abide by all the regulations and all the little details down to the nitty-gritties in that regard. And then Hope, I've been in touch with Hope fairly often about this, and she's graciously agreed to remain on the payroll for the next month to give us a full meeting cycle. And that would give us an opportunity to reach out to her with any questions that come up during the training and bounce ideas off of her. Basically Hope will sort of be on a on-call basis where I can reach out to her with questions and clarify things so that I have a full understanding of the whole process as well. And it would be basically on an as-needed basis when anyone from the board also, has questions for how we've done things in the past, then we can reach out to her. And I thought it would be easiest and best if I was the liaison between the board and town and Hope, so that we just have one line of communication for accountability and streamlining the communication. And lastly, I really want to say a big thank you to Hope for all of her efforts and sacrifices and dedication and extreme passion about all that she's done. And just have great gratitude for, all that she's done over the past couple of years as the DDA executive director, and really wish her the best, moving on after this. So
Yeah,
my update.
Can I affirm thank you, Hope, for everything you've done and your contributions, and Steve, in regards to moving to QuickBooks, the only thing that I would ask is that we bring in something that's totally reconciled and clean and without question, because if we're going to start a new DDA QuickBooks file, which I think is what we're talking about.
No.
That it, no.
Yeah, no, we're going to continue the one that Tanner,
Okay, all right.
Tanner built it
I
for
guess
us.
I just want to make sure that Tanner's getting accurate reconciled information, or is he the one reconciling the information?
You know, I'm not sure about that, but I know that Rita worked really hard, and Hope as well on the and other people on the town audit, and that created you know, made it essential that we get our books in order. I don't know
Yeah.
if
I mean, I
I don't
would
want to
love
say
to.
that they weren't in order before that. I don't know that.
No, not okay, not in order. I guess just like in a normal monthly business thing, like at the end of every month, right? Uh, the account gets reconciled,
Yes.
just because that's when the statements come,
Yeah.
and you know that's a easy. Maybe June 1st would be a good, or whenever I'm not sure exactly what day, but you know, starting it monthly clean would be a good segue so that there's not ambiguity of different accounts, you know, chart of accounts, sitting down, going over the chart of accounts. Like, we don't have that many vendors. We're not that complicated. It should be a pretty easy system. So I think yeah, I'm on the same page, and I hope that between Tanner and Rita and Hope, you know, we allow Kate to come in with a good system and a good you know, clean, reconciled set of books that we can move forward from. That's all. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, no, I think all of that is happening, has happened, and will happen. So thanks,
Yeah,
Andrew.
and
Those are important
this is
points.
Rita. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Rita.
Okay.
Yes,
Hello,
yes, Rita.
everyone. Yes, just an update. So Tanner has been doing the monthly bank reconciliations. And for the audit, that was obviously a must. What we're still working on, and probably most likely we'll work on with Kate, I'd like the chart of accounts to be more, let's see, matching with towns chart of accounts, because it'll be easier as far as obviously the budget is based, the budget figures and accounts agree to towns. And this is not Tanner's fault, that we just need to communicate better. And what I'm thinking is, once we find out if Kate has any experience with QuickBooks, that we would sit down with her and possibly for 2021, like I said, create some additional accounts to match.
Yeah. And I screw myself with this all the time, Rita. Like, I'll call one job by a last name and by an address, and then suddenly I've got, you know, it's like, oh wait a minute, let's just figure out what everything should be called, and then it works a little bit easier, you know.
And like you said, you have so little. I mean, there's so little going on with your books. This is going to be a piece of cake, especially once we have the chart of accounts set up.
Yeah. And sorry, Rita, I appreciate you chiming in, and I'm glad to hear that everything was reconciled, which I didn't know. But I was thinking that some of these are more nitty-gritty things that we should save for another time or offline.
Agree.
Great, but thanks for letting us know that the books are in order, essentially. Well, great then. The next item is the treasurer report. Ron Mitchell, I don't know if you have that. I didn't see it ahead of time.
Well, there have been a few things come through the meeting tonight that I want to investigate. And one is the statutory limitations about these finances. I would like to, and we'll do some checking in the statute as to what the actual reporting parameters are, because I'm very concerned about where we're going here with that. I do want to mention that with you leaving the chair and the new executive director coming in, that we have to have our bank accounts signature cards changed. I talked with the bank today, and the old officers have to sign out in a similar manner that they signed in. And they did agree to do it by mail with Hope, since she is on the East Coast. And these are the, I misplaced it here because my computer crashed early in the meeting, and they require pictures of driver's licenses and proof of your address if different from your mailing address, which almost everybody's is in Netherlands. So what I would like to do with that regard is to have one sheet for those signing out and one sheet for those signing in, because their signature card only has 4 spaces available, and that won't accommodate what we're doing here. So I just wanted, I will get together with each person individually and try and take care of that and hand carry those documents around. But I think each person will have to actually go into the bank, with the exception of Hope, and present their driver's license and their ID to the bank in person. So be aware of that. Our 2 accounts total together have about $926,500, and most of these accounts we have in our Tiff account right now, $593,000, and we have $333,000 in our operating account, and about $93,000 has to be moved from, well, was part of it was moved, but I made a mistake. Rita caught it, and I thank her for doing that. I didn't take out the costs of the county treasurer. The county treasurer charges us an amount for handling the transaction, and that was $1,400 just to give us the money. So I'll make that adjustment tomorrow. And again, I'd like to talk with Karen tomorrow or very soon about this policy statement and get that ready for the next meeting. So that's a very brief report. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you, Ron. And Hope, I don't know if you have any executive director report.
Sure. Yeah, I do. First, I really want to thank everybody for letting me work with them for the past 2 years. Listening to this meeting, I keep thinking about the first one that I attended in the basement of the community center. And I think at that meeting, and for at least 2 or 3 after, there were only about 2 board members who were really actively engaging and talking with one another. And there were very few projects that were on the plate. And it's so exciting to me to hear everyone debating about a financial policy, because I don't even think that was on the forefront of anyone's mind about 2 years ago. And when we received grant funding and all the money and went through COVID and actually got everything back that we had given out, plus created great community networking through that, pretty wonderful. The electrical box made it through, wayfinding took off. There's not only a public art policy, but now there's an actual committee of people who I think are pretty amazing and pretty incredible. So I think the DDA board to me seems alive, and they seem thoughtful and in action, and that's really exciting to me. One of the things that was imperative as the DDA executive director was understanding those statutes and bylaws. And in a lot of the conversation tonight, I did hear some things that would and could be answered if people took the time and read that statute. It's long, but it's exciting. And the bylaws speak to a lot of the responsibilities of each member on the board. So very excited about that. And then lastly, I am grateful to Rita for helping me walk through this audit. And she was hired in August, and I think Mandy left in January. And what left with Mandy to me was, I never knew what was taking place with the budget, how much money we had left, where did Tiff come from? You know, what were all these columns and lines on the budget spreadsheet? And I'm just beside myself happy that this English teacher who hates math was able to like at least like pass off some crumbs of a spreadsheet. And so to hear that Kate's going to have Quicken, it's like, yeah, who? I think that's super wonderful. So, gosh, you know, thank you so much for this great experience. I'm definitely happy to be home. I think this year has been traumatic and a toll on everyone, along with other issues that they deal with. So thank you so very much for letting me come back in December to see if this could work out. You know, I'm glad it didn't. Kate sounds like a wonderful person, and you guys are headed in a great direction. So bon voyage. Take care.
Well,
Thank you, Hope.
Yeah, thank you, Hope. And remember, it's a process, not an event. And thank you so much for all your help with the process while you were here. And I appreciate everything you did.
Yeah.
Well, let's rock and roll. It's getting on 11 o'clock here, so
yeah.
I'm tired.
All right. Well, thank you, Hope. Appreciate all that you've done. I'd just like to go quickly through the committee reports. If I'm hoping that there's not much here, but for the Big Springs Parking Committee.
Yeah, not much.
no.
We've reached out to Chris. Chris is in communications with JVA. They're about to send the next plan for us to review. So that's all to report there.
Okay, that sounds good. Jonathan or Andrew, I don't know.
Steve, do you mind if I know you kind of went over mine. There's just one.
You know what? I missed that. Sorry,
Yeah,
Karen.
and I'm sorry. There's just one thing I really wanted to make sure you guys heard, and that is that we are recognizing our Fire Marshal Rick Hendrickson. And I know he's on tonight, and he attends these meetings like clockwork, and he comes to the Planning Commission meetings and the Board of Trustees meetings, and we just want to recognize him for being such an amazing ad hoc team member for our staff. And I just want to read the quote from Marshall Johns, which is, "Rick is a hugely valuable asset to the community. Rarely get a medic, firefighter, and cop all in one person." And then the COVID update really gives updates for businesses and what they need to do for facial covering and so forth. And you can read the rest of the report, but I did really want to say that. And I also wanted to thank Hope for her years of commitment to the town, and just wish you the very best, Hope, with everything that's going on with you and your family. And just know that we all hold you very close.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And yeah, I second that with Rick. It's really wonderful that all he's been doing in town as well.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, Rick, and I know this is last minute, but tomorrow ceiling membrane inspection. If you want to come look at it, it's open. Yeah.
What time is that?
Well, I think there's a sprinkler inspection as well. So whenever you want to show up and look at it. But sidebar. All right, I'll let you guys go.
All right.
Got it.
Thank you. Is there anything from the Performance Space Committee?
No, I think Jonathan and I spoke earlier. Jonathan, if you want to jump in, but I think our goal was to try to help set some preliminary goals involving grants and community engagement to kind of circle back on the performance space as a whole, so that we can tune Kate in and empower her to help look for some, possibilities and engage with Teens Inc. and town, etc. So I think that's kind of been a little bit lower on the totem pole so far, but I'd like to move it up. And I know live music is important to me personally. I think it's important to other people as well. It's my art, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I'll
Andrew.
just jump in there and agree with Andrew that I think we want to keep it on the docket right now, considering the grant funding from GOCO and the restoration happening of some of the trails in that area by ProSab's grant that they were awarded. That I think we want to let that project kind of come to fruition and kind of see how that is taken in by the community and keep the idea of the performance space kind of open for discussion and visions, especially as we are taking on Envision 2030. And so I don't think we want to drop it as a DDA, but I think right now it's kind of still in that we're open to the idea and looking for collaboration and ideas from potential festival venues in that area, as well as other partnerships. I'm not sure if, speaking for myself and kind of piggybacking on what Andrew said, is we know that the master plan of Netherlands incorporates kind of in this idea of an outdoor venue, and that live music, and especially Nedfest, Frozen Dead Guy Days, festivals, High Peaks Art Fair, that's always kind of been Netherlands. And for the past year in particular, it's kind of fallen off just because of the pandemic. And for a year before that, we had a lot of other kind of barriers and new kind of conflicts come up as a growing town. So I think we want to keep that open as a DDA, but mostly we want to try to tie that in with what's happening with other developments in town, from the public art to the farmers market to redevelopment that Public Works is trying to do, and just kind of keep an open eye to what could this space become if we as the DDA with our funds are looking toward developing the business atmosphere of Netherlands, can partner with the other entities interested in developing these spaces. But I think for this next year, we should probably let ProSab kind of take the lead in redeveloping a baseline there, getting some trails and getting us back to a baseline we can work from. So that's what I'd add.
All right. Well, sounds good. Next, we have the Beautification Committee. If anybody has anything on that.
I can update everybody. It's getting to be time to start thinking about flowers. I had a meeting with Mike Reichart, who we're engaged in a contract. And Steve, by the way, did you get the signed contract to sign?
Yes.
Okay. And Nikki Dunn the other week, we talked about, opportunities for perennial gardens. We looked at a couple places where we're going to put in perennials. The one that is probably most visible to most people is Fred's Garden, which is a little garden right in front of Town Hall. And I have a plan for a bunch of beautiful perennials that are hardy. And then near the Welcome to Netherlands sign, Nikki requested some extra perennials there. And then so I'll be setting up an order. We've allocated $600 of DDA funds. It's already been approved. You guys approved it to do that. And so with the help of Mike and Nikki's crew, those will be installed after Memorial Day. And then we talked about the annual flowers, and we talked about moving a couple of the pots to more centrally locate them, so it'll be more efficient for watering. And also last year, I think we're not quite sure if the farm tub systems were working well. So I first contacted Elizabeth Allen to see if she'd be willing to come and give us a tutorial. She's too busy. So I actually reached out to the owners of the farm tub company, and they're in Boulder, and they're coming up on Friday to help inspect our pots and make sure everything is working properly. Because
Nice.
ideally these farm tub systems, there's a reservoir of water with these wool wicks, and we shouldn't have to be watering every single day. So hopefully if we, in the beginning, of course we do, but hopefully if making sure we get everything right, we're hoping to really get it more sustainable with the use of water and getting these wicks working right. And if anybody wants any more details, please reach out to me. It's probably won't be planting till after Memorial Day, because you never know, we can get snow. So
just throw a Do you like throw a sleeve over the wick when it passes from the reservoir to the pot, or is it just a bare wick?
There's so there's a reservoir and there's like a shelf, and then you put soil on top of that, and the wick, there's no sleeve. It's just like a big fat piece of wool, like a
Right. No, I get it. I was just gonna say, like, maybe consider a sleeve to help with evaporation on the way up in between where there's not like a hard connection.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I'll talk to the farm tub people about it. They're the experts. One thing I did learn is that having good quality potting soil is super important. The stuff with the perlite vermiculite, because sometimes what can happen is when you put in any old topsoil or compost, it sometimes the wicking system doesn't work as well. So we'll be looking at that too. But I think we've got good soil in there. But obviously,
Yeah, nice.
we may need some amendments. We'll figure it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Rhea. And American Clay Works, if you haven't checked them out, the company in Denver, have tons of like mass quantity commercial gardening soil. So that's all. But with sidebar, we can talk later.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Rhea. And Barbara, do you have anything from the Communication Committee?
Nope, we are anxiously awaiting Kate to start so we can start working on the website with her, and she has website experience, so that's exciting. That's it.
All right. Sounds good. Claudia, do you have, Claudia's had to sign off. So we'll, Jonathan, I don't know if you have anything on the committee. I think it's kind of been in hibernation lately.
It's been in hibernation. I've actually kind of just been letting it organically develop, and it seems like the DDA has fallen into a lot more of an organic policy regarding that. I mean, the hiring committee functioned very effectively, and I think that the public art committee is functioning very effectively. So if anything, I'd probably just want to connect with the current committee members kind of on an email basis and take feedback from those folks of what's working well for you all and where the communication has kind of had issues between DDA and then BOT approval, and then find a way to kind of streamline things more to provide a basis and kind of a guideline for folks if they want to jump into a committee. But currently, for the last couple months, I think I've seen a massive improvement in the way that the DDA is functioning on in terms of committee levels to meetings, and then BOT. There still seems to be a little bit of some flushing out of communication between what DDA is understanding and what BOT is understanding. But my update there would be if anybody of current committees would like to send me, what is working well and what are things that you think would be effective, I guess, guidelines for DDA policies, I'd be happy to compile those and then send them to Claudia. Claudia had developed kind of basic guidelines, and they're generally exactly what we follow currently as a DDA. But if we want to really make this a policy, I think the most helpful way to go about it would just be feedback from DDA members who are currently or who have been a part of a subcommittee on best practices, what has been effective, and best means of communication between subcommittees and the DDA board. So I think that's the way to move forward with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just, on the chat, I did share that Tuckman stages of group development, because no matter what group it is, I think all groups go through this. It's my personal experience, and I think it's worth a read. If you guys have 15 minutes to check that out, to keep that in the back of our minds as we move through, our new group and our new group coalescing and integrating with, other groups and boards, etc. So I think that's an important little nugget that I just wanted to share with everyone.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. And let's see, on the wayfinding committee, Claudia has been a little more in touch with Merge than me over the last month, but I've been in on the emails. And I know that the Merge company is coming up with a few general design concepts that they want to run past us as a board, and then most likely will be seeking more feedback from the stakeholders before we move forward. And I wanted to say also that as the Wayfinding Committee, we're going to be very thorough in our communications out to stakeholders and also general public as the time comes. At this stage, it's more of an internal process, but we will reach out in a good way and really broadcast it because we found that some people didn't know about some of the stakeholder meetings that we were holding originally. So we'll do a better job on the next round with that, getting the information out. And then Rhea, I don't know if there's anything more to say on public art. We just had something from it tonight.
No, I think you guys know where we're headed.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, like, did you guys email the public art committee? Or I don't even remember seeing any of the stakeholder outreach stuff for the wayfinding. And I think that, and I of course could have missed something. Can you please just make sure that you know, you reach out to me, I guess, so I can forward it to everyone. And we actually do have a public art Gmail account that Danielle Kraus, I don't know if she's still on, is now in control of. I just want to make sure, I'm not sure any of the public art committee has been involved in the wayfinding signage. And I think it's critical that they are. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we didn't consider them a stakeholder in it, but it's been definitely on the radar the whole time. So we will be reaching out.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure, definitely. And let's see it. I think I don't see Chris here. So I think we could skip over the last few items are the Safer Streets update and the TIP project update and the left turn lane update. So we'll catch up with Chris on the next meeting about that. Lastly, if there's any other business a board member wants to bring up, it is quite late, but if there's something important. Okay, and I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Woohoo! All right, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.